This one is fairly short today because where it ended, it wouldn't have sounded good continuing on to the next chapter. So, just a wee little bit of short one this time around. His mind whirled with the tempting thoughts Ruby had laid there. It was madness, he knew. But it also resonated inside him. Try again. Try to win. How long had it been since he gave up on that? It was before Beacon. Almost 2 years ago now. Back in Ansel. He was undertrained, out of shape, out of aura. It was hopeless. But hadn't it always been hopeless? Hadn't the life before this, and the life before that, and so on and so forth the last 500 years? He'd never given up there, no matter how difficult it got. His feet moved a little faster down the corridor. "There you are!" Weiss growled, finally catching sight of him as he rounded the corner. She was awaiting him outside Kitsune's medical room, along with Blake and Yang. The two sent him odd looks, but didn't speak. "I thought you were going to try and escape this too for a few moments. And risk Sune's wrath? You must be joking. Does my wrath not carry the same weight then? I can increase it if that's a problem." "You're perfect just how you are, Weiss." He slipped past her with a coy smile, and almost grinned when her cheeks turned the slightest bit pink on anyone else. It might have been unnoticeable, but her fair complexion gave her away. She clearly knew it too, for she scowled fiercely. "Someone's in a good mood," Yang said. "A suspiciously good mood," Blake added. He rolled his eyes. My 2 daughters turning against me. Oh, woe is me. Why does this world present me with such cruel children? Karma, probably." Blake shrugged. "You've certainly done enough to deserve it." She seemed a little snappier than usual. Jaune glanced to Yang for an answer. "Ignore her," she said. "Blake got her attention and she isn't happy about it." "Yang? She did?" He blinked at the sudden embarrassed girl. He was honestly surprised. "Huh. I'd have expected that of Yang, not you. What'd you do?" "She read smart in front of the professor," Yang said, not at all upset at what he'd said about her. It was pretty much true after all. "Isn't that right, Blake?" Yeah. That's right, Blake." Weiss sighed and shook her head. "Well, I suppose it's not too bad. But do try and keep your reputation in mind. Not everyone is going to be quite so forgiving of your peculiar tastes." Now, Weiss," he teased. "We should encourage our daughter in all things. She's 17 and hormonal. Maybe this is an experimental phase." Weiss shared a brief look with him and smiled. "True. She's around that age after all. Do you think we should give her the talk? Maybe with a banana to try and put on some protection?" An apt choice. After all, there is son to consider, isn't there? "I despise you both so much right now," Blake said, hand on her face. "Weren't we here to make sure Jaune didn't run away from his doctor appointment? Can't we focus on that?" "I was hardly going to run away, my dear," he said, pushing his way past them into Sune's office. It wasn't the medbay she normally used, but a smaller office nearby. She sat behind her desk, one hand on the holographic keyboard of her terminal, the other on a piece of paper before her. Her brown eyes lit up when she saw him, however. For all the wrong reasons, as usual. "Hello," she purred. "Time for a few tests?" "You know, there's a point at which sadism stops being sexy." "I'll keep that in mind. Now sit down." She pointed to the seat on the side of her desk, and then left his teammates to take the others. He was used to the procedure by now, since it was the same one she put him through every 3 days since the breach. She would wrap something about his biceps to take his pulse and readings, and then draw blood from his arm with a large needle. Fortunately, she didn't see the need to do anything to make it worse. Unfortunately, that was because he hated it all anyway. It felt intrusive and nasty. and there was nothing worse than sitting there and accepting the pain without being able to do a single thing to defend himself. "There you go," she said once it was done, and gave him a light slap on the arm just to watch him wince. She plucked the glass vial out of her syringe and put it into a small machine on her desk. "This'll do the work and analyze your blood. But how are other things going? Have you been sleeping well?" I was asking Miss Snee," she said with an amused grin. "I think we all know you're incapable of looking after yourself, Jaune." Weiss didn't even bat an eyelid. "We've made sure he got a full night's sleep, and he's even taking a nap or two during the day as well. We've all forced full meals down him every opportunity, and I can't wait for it to be over." "Oh?" Weiss sent him an arch look. "Why? Do you think we'll just stop because the danger is over? I think we'll be watching your meals for quite a while yet, mister." Just his luck. "He does look healthier," Jaune said. Her eyes traced up and down his body. "If all this comes back well, he should be back on his feet in a matter of days." "Good," he said. "It's about time." "Impatient? The tournament is coming up, but I wouldn't have thought you interested in such things." To hear Galinda, "Your motivation to fight is about as consistent as one of Port's stories. Is someone feeling a little competitive?" Something like that." He spared a glance for his teammates. Weiss looked intrigued, but Blake and Yang? They looked almost suspicious. He shrugged and turned back to the door. "It's more that I doubt my team will settle for not taking part." "You've got that right." Weiss snorted. "An opportunity like the Vital Festival isn't something to take lightly. There will also be so many people watching, including my sister and my father." She shook her head. "I intend to make a good showing, even if no one else does." Jaune's response was interrupted by a light dinging noise. She flicked open the plastic front in front of the machine and pulled the vial out. Jaune swallowed nervously as she hummed and read the screen. What was only a few seconds felt like an eternity, during which his hands gripped the bottom of his chair. "Well, it looks like there is still a little left in your system, but that should clear up in a few days. There will also be a trace for several weeks or months, but it shouldn't have an effect on you." "Can I compete?" he asked. "Can I fight? Can he train?" Weiss cut in. "Jaune, you're not going straight into those fights. Not without some training to test whether you're still in form." "I believe he is fit for both." Jaune smiled and slipped his blood into a cabinet. "Take it easy for the first few times, if only to avoid pulling a muscle. But he should be fine. His aura readings are coming back strong, and his blood tests show that most of the substances are out of his body." "Congratulations, Jaune. You've made a full recovery. Well, unless there's something unusual you've noticed or felt, like his aura, and the fact it no longer worked." She might have known a way around it, but that was a risk he wasn't sure he could take. Jaune had already admitted she was an expert in the human body, not in how aura worked. The most she could do was identify something was wrong, and then take the steps to mitigate the damage. She would prevent him from taking part in the tournament, but more than that, she would likely advise he be removed from Beacon. After all, what point was there for him to stay if he couldn't spar, train, or fight Grimm? He might be kept in some medical facility down in Vale, but either way, he would have to stay there and watch everyone be killed. His eyes trailed to Weiss, and then to his daughters of sorts. They all looked worried and they all watched him with concerned gazes. Jaune smiled. "I haven't noticed anything." He lied. "I think I'm good to go. With no aura. The fights will be difficult, suicidal even. He wasn't afraid though. He would make them work somehow. He had to." Everything's back to normal." Weiss breathed. "Thank goodness." "Team Jazzberry back in action." Yang cheered. "Are we ready to show them what we're made of or what?" Jaune felt time slow down. Was he ready? No, of course not. Cinder was prepared, her plan in place, and he knew what was coming. how dangerous it would be. It was frightening, terribly so, but he wasn't prepared to sit down and let it happen. He wasn't prepared to look back and regret not doing anything. "I'm ready," he said, and despite his fear, he felt he was. There was a sudden thrill, an electric that ran through his body. He was more than ready. This was the moment. "I won't give up, Cinder. Not now, not back then, and never again." Even if the odds were against him, he would keep moving forward. It was all he could do. Yang? Blake? Weiss? He looked them each in the eye, took them in. He wasted his time in this life, spent it on having fun, rather than training. It wasn't a waste, though. He wouldn't accept that. He reconnected with his family. He enjoyed himself. He'd come to love his teammates as family. Wasted? This had been a life worth living. A life worth fighting for. He grinned. Let's kick some ass.